Hey everyone, Greg Staley here from Diverge Media. Thank you for coming aboard tonight. We're going to be talking the PCR test. It's specifically a paper by a man named Peter Borger. We'll go through his credentials. Many authors on the paper, they titled it 10 Critical Flaws in the PCR Test. We'll be talking Pierre Poilievre's removal as the shadow minister of finance for the Conservative Party of Canada. We will be talking some articles that we've been working on and some other things that have caught our eyes in the news. Specifically, my partner and co-owner of Diverge Media, Broderick Visser, if you could bring him in, has been working on an article with a pastor, or speaking to a pastor from Tillsonburg. Do you want to tell everybody a little bit about that?
Yeah, so he was just he was fined back in December. It's unclear if he was just recently fined again, but he was fined back in December on the 27th for having a church service that exceeded over 10 people.
What church are you referring
to? Faith Presbyterian Church in Tillsonburg.
Okay.
So he was fined, and then just on February 7th, the Ontario Provincial Police attended the church. After the church service, he was issued a court summons. So he's supposed to be at the court, or he's attending it via phone. So a phone call, court summons on April 1st. So does that mean it's a joke?
Yeah, well, let's hope it gets tossed out like a bad joke.
He told me he plans on challenging it. He has legal representation. He's hoping that he's very positive. I wouldn't say hoping. He's very positive. It sounded like on the phone that this will make changes for other churches in Ontario. So,
well, I'm glad that there is individuals standing up and speaking out. And we've been critical of this for a long time. Behind closed doors, we've had many conversations about where's the church on this matter, and towing the line and everybody quoting Romans and taking it out of context. And I wrote an article on it recently talking about the JCCF press release on, I believe, Trinity Bible Chapel. I hope I'm getting that right, here in Kitchener. Yeah. And the pastor there. Sorry, go ahead.
Woolwich, or it's kind of
it's kind of outskirts.
Yeah.
But in his, I spoke with the secretary there. She said, refer me to the website. Said, check out the pastor's personal blog is on there. So he has written about their viewpoint pretty extensively, and I went in and read his work. And my understanding was he basically said there's a point where, yes, you obey your government. They are elected by God. You obey them to a point. And that point is when you are being asked to reject God's commands in another way because of your government. So basically his argument, if I understood it correctly, was that because we are not meeting in person in church, which is a command that God gives us, and he gave the scripture behind it, and I referenced it, basically we are being denied one of God's commandments, and that comes before Romans, where you're saying you need to obey your the government's authority because God has given them authority. Well, yeah, but when they take away your ability to follow God's commands, that's where he's saying that line is. So I think it's good that people are starting to fight back. I'm excited. They've invited us out to church Sunday. I think we'll be attending. I told you to send an official email just letting them know that we'll be there. We'll check it out. That article's coming out. Is there anything anybody else should know that you think is interesting? Or
I did record the conversation, and it's included in the article are audio clips from the conversation if you'd like to listen rather than read. They're both available for whoever.
So it's kind of clipped up. You can listen to the audio clips of the real conversation as well?
Yeah, yes. So I did it as a format with question, his answer in text, and on the audio. So a lot of the interesting things he said were, I'm paraphrasing, but churches in other countries, they don't understand the Western predicament of not being able to go to church right now, because they've been going to church regardless of what their government says forever. Because, like, say in China, I've met Chinese missionaries before, and they have to secretly bring people in by 1 or 2 at a time within hours at a time just to have that church service.
Well, what's interesting about that, and it's always interesting to have these conversations in real time, live stream. You kind of get an idea of what we're actually thinking in real time. But one of our brothers attended, I don't know what the degree is called, but it's a 2 or 4 year seminary school in California. And his now fiance, their parents were missionaries to China. And so we had that conversation a little bit about what that was like. And he basically said, you can't grow too big. You get too big, you get too much attention, that's when they come after you. He's like, if you, typical of our brother, nothing seems to really concern him. And he just goes, well, that's as long as you stay, small enough, you're good. You're just in a country where they hate Christians and they'll put you in containment camps and detention centers and try to re-educate you because of your religious views. But it's okay. It just don't get too big. Like that was his response. But yeah, you're right. They've always been meeting in secret, and we've taken it so for granted. And I think there's so many people in the West, and I don't say this lightly, but ultimately extremely soft when it comes to their faith, very lukewarm, as you would say, or very cold even. And not a lot of people are pretty, passionate about their faith. I don't get that vibe about Canadian. I'm sorry, I just don't. I don't get that vibe from Canadian churches. Like there's 100,000 pastors here in Canada, and like the majority of them are on fire for God. I don't get that vibe. The majority of it feels like it's a job for most of them, and they're more than content to go along. And I don't mean to generalize, and I wish all the best. And a lot of this is personal experience from things like we've talked about behind closed doors. Churches we've attended, and why aren't they open? And all these different things that are going on. But I'm probably one of the worst. I'm pretty critical of the church right now as it stands in Canada. Extremely disappointed in how few pastors have spoken up. But for the ones that do, I'm more than happy to cover it. And even the ones that don't, which I would love to hear the reasoning as to staying closed. And if I hope it's not a regurgitation of that the Romans follow your government thing. I hope you could have a conversation with some pastors and see if they would be open to it. But on that matter,
I'd assume that that's just like maybe there's more liberal standpoints and the virus is scary to them or something. But yeah, on that note, I did ask him what his thoughts were and what his opinions were on churches who continued to just hold in virtual services during closures and lockdowns. And his answer was very blunt, and it was an interesting conversation to say the least. So I hope.
So I'm just going to pause here. My memories about small town church is that it was the glue that held the community together. Help those in needs. Families meeting every Sunday. Fairly positive overall. Yeah, don't get me wrong. I had my issues because the church is full of people. It's like somebody referenced this. It's like, why is there so many crappy people in church? Just because it's supposed to be it's like a hospital, right? It's where you go to get fixed up and try to improve yourself. So you're getting all those people. But, for the most part, it's generally positive. And this is why it's been so important to me for churches to speak up, is they're meant to be the voice of a community. They're meant to be stepping out and helping the homeless. They're meant to be out helping their community in any way, shape, or form that they can. And I feel like, and I've been critical of many churches for a long time, that many take on too much debt and they're unable to actually do the things that I feel they should do in the community as a result. And maybe that's my personal bias on it, but I don't know why there's been such a silence from the majority of churches here. Maybe there's a lot that are just continuing kind of by the wayside. But when we consider what pastors are considering, I think it's worth referencing that national omnibus poll, right? We wrote on it, 38% of Canadians polled out of roughly 2,400. I think it was 2,413 was the official number. Out of those polled, 38% said they were okay with the outright suspension of charter rights and freedoms granted under the Canadian Charter for the duration of the pandemic. What do you think of, so if we extrapolate that to the general public, is it a hard miss how we see churches, capitulating to, maybe the fear that comes with like I imagine there's a fear that comes with opening about being a target. So maybe that's part of that factors in, is that they're worried about the public opinion, and that public opinion, that's 38% of your public that says they're okay with this. And then some of the questions in there were a little bit crazier. But if you can bring us into our next story, the Pierre Poilievre story, we'll go there, and I'll pull up something else for everyone here.
Mm-hmm.
Just want to introduce what's happened with the removal of the shadow minister of finance for the Conservative Party of Canada. Conservative superstar Pierre Poilievre has been removed from the Conservative Party of Canada as shadow minister of finance, as reported by Huffington Post, National Post.
An anonymous source told CBC News First, and it's been reported else. Yeah. He was shuffled out. Now he will be the Minister for Jobs and Industry. It's honestly shocking. I felt like it was coming. I didn't think it would come because he's such a large voice for the Conservatives, but it's happened now. And I mean, we were talking about it before the show. Maybe there's other roles and egos at play.
Well, yeah, I made the speculation that what is it all about? Were you maybe perhaps afraid of what the left wing media will say or say about your party? And then I said to Kate, I said I can understand why they would be concerned about what the left wing media would say about them when the party platform seems to be polling more and more left as the party exists going forward. They seem to be less conservative over time, so I can understand why they would care what the left-leaning media and center-left-leaning media would say, but I don't understand. It doesn't make sense. Pierre Poilievre has been a superstar for the Conservative Party. I mean, how many politicians could do videos on actual politics and go viral and get hundreds of thousands of views? And sometimes I think he's had a few over 1 million even. And it's you just kick that guy from your party. And I seen some of the comments that were coming through these articles that people were saying, I'm done with the Conservative Party. This is the last thing I was voting for. You had a guy that was you would consider a superstar, conservative superstar in the shadow minister finance position. And now you've removed him. And it's unclear to me. I said, was it ego? Maybe Aaron O'Toole didn't like having a man in his party, Pierre Poilievre, who arguably overshadows him by every measure. Pierre definitely seems to be a more popular political figure. Many people routinely in the comment sections on Aaron O'Toole kind of say, I wish Pierre had been the one elected. I wish he would have ran. And that's got to hurt a little bit. So I wondered how much of that played into it. Yeah. But I'll just go into the comments here real quick.
Donna was saying Aaron is a red Tory. Oh, wait, no, the other one before. Yeah, Aaron insists he's against cancel culture. Yeah, I remember him saying that at the debate or the fireside chat. But, he says other things. Other things have happened.
It smacks of that political standard you've come to expect of, I will say what it takes to get elected, and I will turn around and do another thing, unfortunately. So back to what we were talking about. I seen one of the comments there. We were talking about the national omnibus poll. We shifted. Don't worry, I didn't forget. Here we are. So I wrote an article about the national omnibus poll survey, asked some deeply disturbing questions. Responses from Canadians will leave you perturbed. I was pretty happy with that wordplay there, for the record. I don't know if anybody else cares, but like certain things, you pat yourself on the back. Pat myself on the back. I'm happy with that. And anyway, so that was stupid, needless information you didn't need to know. So 38% of Canadians support these actions, that being, do you support or oppose the government suspending civil liberties and rights under the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms for the duration of the pandemic? 2,413 polled, 38% of voters supported these measures. So the breakdown there was 12% strongly supported, 26% somewhat supported. Not sure what that shakes out to mean. But there's some other questions in there that really pretty out there, we'll say. Let's get into a few that popped out. Do you support or oppose police being authorized to enter homes at their discretion without warrants to enforce compliance with COVID-19 restrictions? Now, this is from Campaign Research. This is a full-service research and strategy firm founded in 2003. Recently commissioned this, and they're, according to Mr. Hillier, they work with prominent Canadian organizations across a wide spectrum. Sorry, they say that they work with them. And Mr. Hillier pointed out on his social media recently that this is the premier polling firm of Doug Ford and his party. So
sample of 2,413 people. That's
yeah,
not
and in this
sample at all.
It's not at all, but this is, we can have a discussion about the biases of polling. They took this group of 24 to 13. There's a company called Maru Blue. Now, there is a breakdown. They did do it by who they voted for, but it's unclear how they picked the people that are in that group, if it's all random. And they say, hey, are you conservative? Okay, I don't know what the criteria is, but basically Maru Blue was picked, and they have national omnibus survey participants ready to go, and that's my understanding, is that they were picked from there and they had them ready to go. They were part of their system and they did it. It's uncertain at this point in time who commissioned it. Very uncertain who commissioned it. I put out a few responses. I put out to the Premier Ford, put out to the Conservative Party. Canada said, is this you? I believe either Canada or Ontario. It might have been Ontario. I said, did you commission this? Basically wanted to know because it's important. But this is another one. Do you support or oppose police being authorized to establish pedestrian checkpoints to stop and question people outside of their homes to enforce compliance with COVID-19 restrictions? And on that one, 18% of Canadians strongly supported it. 28% somewhat supported the idea. This is the kind of mindset we're at least with some. So even if we took this and divided it in half and say, hey, I think it's way over exaggerated, and I don't think that's the real representation of Canadians. So let's take the number divided by half. You still have like 15, 20% of Canadians almost that are willing to have their liberty suspended. 1/5 Canadians almost. Like, this is scary stuff to me, to think that Canadians are this willing to just let go of their rights and freedoms. It's like they don't understand. They have the golden goose and they want to hand it to someone else. And the golden goose is freedom. And they're just going, yeah, no, protect me. Here's my goose. You can keep handing me the eggs as I need them. Like, it just rattles me. This one should give everyone chills. Do you support or oppose police and health officials being authorized to separate family members at their discretion by removing people from homes and housing them somewhere else to reduce or eliminate the risk of COVID-19 spread? Wow. And then remember, in the original tenders, they said they wanted these COVID isolation centers or hotels so they could put people there that were there for COVID-related reasons, I believe was the language they used. Randy Hillier brought it up in the House about the ambiguous language used, asked, and they laughed him out of the room, out of the building. So these are some of the questions that went around in that national omnibus poll. You can check out this article for the remainder. Lots of good questions in there, but it's some crazy stuff asked and even crazier answers, really, in my opinion. Sorry to bore you.
I'm just yawning a lot. No, not in regards to you.
Well, that's what happens when you work all day and then get home and I tell you to work more. I was like, hey, he gets home. I'm like, it's 5 o'clock. He got in the door like 15 minutes prior. And I went, hey, how's that article coming? You got it gone? Is it ready to go yet? And he's like, yeah, I just finished eating. He's all proud of himself, I think, because he got home, ate right away. He was making good time.
I didn't eat well, but I ate.
Then like an hour later, I messaged you again. I'm like, you need to start helping me put together material for the live show. So this is what it's like to work with Greg Staley from Diverge Media. But anyways, I think now's the time. Let's go into the Corman-Drosten PCR paper. So this is just, I don't want that. The paper is titled, you still have this? You pull out my screen. External peer review of the RT-PCR test to detect SARS-CoV-2 reveals 10 major scientific flaws at the molecular and methodological level. Consequences for false positive results. This was by Peter Borger. And just a little bit of background on Peter, because it's relevant. W&W Research. So he has MSc in biology, PhD in medical sciences. He's worked for several research institutes, including the University of Groningen in the Netherlands, the University of Sydney, Australia, the University of Basel and Zurich in Switzerland, and he's an expert on molecular biology of gene expression and signal transduction networks. Peter Borger published over 70 articles in leading international journals, including New England Journal of Medicine. Currently, Peter Borger works on non-protein coding part of the genome and how it is involved in generating variation and speciation. So that's the man who, and there's a team of people, 22 authors in total on this paper.
Claire Craig is one of them.
Craig who? Claire Craig. Oh, yeah. Yes. So that was Claire Craig is one of the people that was mentioned in Randy Hillier's papers, requesting an investigation into scientific fraud into public health policies. So point out here, he has a comment. I'm not going to get through all of this. This is a massive paper, as you can see. 30 pages long. It's just too much for tonight, obviously. But we'll go through some of the things that I have popped out to me during my research of this paper, during my going through of it. So they have, all right, let's go. What is important when designing a PCR test as described in the Corman-Drosten protocol? The primers and probes, the temperature at which reactions take place, number of amplification cycles. They say less than 35, preferably 25 to 30 cycles. In case of virus detection, greater than 35 cycles only detect signals which do not correlate with infectious virus, as determined by isolation in cell culture. So if someone is tested by PCR as positive when a threshold of 35 cycles or higher is used, as is the case in most laboratories in Europe and the United States, the probability that said person is actually infected is less than 3%. The probability that said result is a false positive is 97%. We've talked about this. I put out to the Ministry of Health. I'm going to have to contact them because they're giving me the cold shoulder. No answer. I said, what's the breakdown of the total cases and the percentage or the threshold cycles that they tested? I'm sorry, I've seen your comment. But what is the percentage, the cycle thresholds that we've had as a percentage of cases? How many were above 35 cycles? Because of that exact thing, there was roughly, I think, 3,900 tested. And anything above 35, it was less than 3% that could actually be cultured. So that's major problem. Molecular, so they give all their reasons here. And this I found interesting too. Talk about primer and probe design. Reliable and accurate PCR test protocols are normally designed using 100. We don't want that. But respectively, similarly for the primer, they advise it should not be clear. Okay, here we are. Sorry, everyone. 1B, unspecified wobbly primer and probe sequences. To obtain reproducible and comparable results, it is essential to distinctively define the primer pairs. Okay, so we've had a lot of people constantly talking to us about the isolation and the primers. So this is Peter Borger giving his viewpoint on the primers used in the Corman-Drosten protocol for the PCR test. So he says, indicated by it is essential to define the primer pairs. In the Corman-Drosten paper, we observed 6 unspecified positions indicated by the letters R, W, M, and S, showed in table 2. The letter W means that at this position there can be either an A or a T. R signifies there can be either be a G or an A. M indicates that the position may either be an A or a C. The letter S indicates that there may either be a G or a C on this position. The high number of variants not only is unusual, but it's also highly confusing for laboratories. So this was news to me. I've known about cycle thresholds for quite a while. If you follow Diverge Media, we constantly talk about the cycle thresholds. So I'm looking at the comments. It's getting crazy down there. I think you're in there too. And he's like, we only do 2 of these a month now. I'm having fun. So not only is the high number of variants unusual, it's also highly confusing. So these 6 unspecified could result in the design of several different alternative primer sequences which do not relate to SARS-CoV-2. The design variations will inevitably lead to results that are not even SARS-CoV-2 related. Slowing that down, because this is, you get into these medical papers and these scientific papers and they're very dry, but certain things they hammer home because they want people to pick up on. So the design variations will inevitably lead to results that are not even SARS-CoV-2 related. Therefore, the confusing, unspecific description in the Corman-Drosten paper is not suitable as a standard operational protocol. This document itself was brought up in Randy Hillier's request paper, requesting an investigation into public health policies for scientific fraud. This was a paper referenced in the over 250 references contained within it. This was one of them. and they talked about this paper in the 10 fatal flaws. So this is what they're saying, is it's unspecified position should have been designed unequivocally. Therefore, it's confusing. It's not suitable as a standard operational protocol. And the majority of PCR tests, this is why this is important, the majority of PCR tests are derived from the Corman-Drosten protocol. So this was their point. This is very important. And the design variations as they are currently will inevitably lead to results that are not SARS-CoV-2 related. That's what Peter Borger is saying. And he goes through, if you can pull up my screen here, Kate, you can see as they're talking about these sequences here, they have them outlined at the bottom, and this could be multiple things. Like he said, a W could be this, or that, and they laid it out. So in a sequence, how do you get this right? If you have variable sequences, that this could be two things, this could be two other things, this could be two other things. So this was his point. The WHO protocol, which directly derives from the Corman-Drosten paper, concludes that in order to confirm the presence of SARS-CoV-2, two control genes, the E and we'll just leave out the super scientific stuff for now, must be identified in the assay. It should be noted that the RDPD gene has one uncertain position wobbly in the forward primer, two uncertain positions in the reverse primer, and it has three uncertain positions in the probe. So over my head, but that's where they're talking about those variable things that can be used. So he's saying there's a bunch of different things that could happen based on the position. So 2 different primers, 4 different reverse primers, and 8 distinct probes can be synthesized for the RDPD gene. Together, there are 64 possible combinations of primers and probes. Okay, Corman-Drosten paper further identifies a third gene, according to the WHO protocol, was not further validated, deemed unnecessary. Of note, the N gene assay also performed well, was not subjected to intensive further validation because it was slightly less sensitive. There was an unfortunate omission, as it would be best to use all 3 gene PCRs as confirmatory assays, and this would have resulted in an almost sufficient virus RNA detection diagnostic tool protocol. So they're saying 3 confirmatory assay steps would at least minimize out errors and uncertainties at every fold step in regards to wobbly spots, those variations. Nonetheless, the protocol would fall short of any good laboratory practice. They're saying even then, it would still fall short of good laboratory practice when factoring in all other design errors. As it stands, this assay is regrettably neither proposed in the WHO recommendation as a mandatory and crucial third confirmatory step, nor is it emphasized in the Corman-Drosten paper as an important optional reassurance. So this is very heavy scientific paper. They break down the various reasons why this shouldn't be used. Do we figure it out? If I send this to you, can you put it in the description, or not in the description, in the comment section and the description so people can check it out? Because again, this is the type of stuff we do our best to break it down for you, but this is a lot to go through, and it's over 30 pages. I recommend going through it, getting an idea of some of the reasons behind what they're doing, or their issues with the PCR. So another one was reaction temperatures. As indicated, 3 of the primers described in the Corman-Drosten paper are not within the normal range for GC content. 2 primers have unusual and very low GC values of 28 to 30. See, this is over my head. I still have to go through this. And I would love to have somebody who was on this paper explain the importance of what I'm reading. So maybe what we should do, there's 22 authors on that paper. I'm sure any one of them would understand what's in the paper. We should reach out and see if we can get somebody to maybe come on and explain this for everyone, the importance of what they're describing. But basically, Peter Borger, we've talked about his work before. He's been he's been at this for a long time at the narrative, and calling out all the issues. There he is saying that he's offering a solution, saying you should use this third confirmatory measure, but even then it wouldn't pass a good laboratory practice protocol. So he's just saying it's riddled with errors. The whole Corman-Drosten protocol, from which the PCR tests are mainly derived from, is riddled with errors, and it shouldn't be used as a diagnostic tool at all. So that's his viewpoint. It specifically points out, as we've pointed out in the past, anything over 35 thresholds, less than 3% likelihood that you would actually be infectious. And this is important because this is the real number that needs to be talked about. When you get your test, if you take a PCR test, if you get it, it should say what your cycle threshold was that you tested positive at. Because like I put out to the Ministry of Health, how many tested positive over 35? Would it make a difference to a lot of people if they knew that 50 to 60, 70, like what's the number, right? How many people tested over 35? And the reason in my mind, it's like you have a high probability that you probably have people testing above that, is because Canada runs 33 to 45 cycles across Canada, 40 in Ontario. So if you have that limit that you can go to, you can cycle that high. How many are actually being cycled that high? How many people are actually sick and infectious? How many? So the ones that you know for pretty positive is probably under 25. Even when it gets up to 30, it drops from 70% could be cultured to less than 20%. Virus was never isolated. Fluoride free peel did a lot of work on that. See, I don't know enough to make a comment on never been properly isolated. I know that they basically took, my understanding was, from the people they say were in the area exposed, they found a bunch of RNA and they said this was similar enough, and so it could be picking up a bunch of other things. I've read through the FDA documents that talk about we remember we posted on that a long time ago. I should dig that out. That's probably from 3 to 5 months ago last year. But we released that FDA paper that talked about it not being properly isolated, that talked about that being an issue, and that you could be picking up other viruses and other things in addition to COVID, is what they said, or some variation of that. We'll pull that up. We'll get it posted again, because I think it's time for it to make the circulation rounds again. All right, so now we get to shift gears. We'll shift off Corman-Drosten protocol. We'll put that in the description if you want to go through it. All the things they identified. It's a very detailed document, maybe a bit dry for this kind of show, but very important nonetheless. I'm going to be digging into this and some other things. There was the court case, not court case. I think they made their own court, and basically, I can't remember, in Germany, but basically they started releasing some of the stuff of their research, and that was one of them was the Drosten-Corman protocol, or Corman-Drosten protocol. And so I'm starting to go through some of these documents. It's going to take some time. Bear with me, but over the next week or two, expect some more stuff coming back on expert opinion that you likely haven't heard on the PCR protocols. But yeah, in essence, it's not a perfect system. Another major issue I have with what's been going on, it's like, obviously, where did the flu go? But you shouldn't, like, I want your opinion on this. And Kate, I'll get your opinion on this. We'll pull you in here too. Shouldn't you want somebody getting administered an influenza test before you give them a PCR? Wouldn't you want to confirm that it's not influenza before you go to the next step to confirm it's COVID? And why hasn't that been done, do you think?
Well, you're doing that in the beginning.
You're going to have to – it's too quiet here. I'll mute.
Yeah, no, they were doing that in the beginning, where before we were even able to test for COVID, they were doing the influenza testing. And if you tested negative for influenza, I think they were basically saying, okay, it's COVID.
Yeah, well, at the very beginning, I think March, April, when they first started, we were going towards lockdowns, things like that. They talked about, yeah, they tripled the testing, I think, at the time, or doubled it on influenza. And then basically it was only for maybe a month or two that they did that. And then it just stopped seemingly altogether, where testing just dropped off the cliff and didn't happen anymore. And I don't know what shifted in policy to make that happen, but they put more of an emphasis on the COVID stuff. And then it just stopped. We did our Where Did the Flu Go 2020 article. It was one of our biggest articles last year. And just for everybody here, thank you so much for supporting Diverge Media. We're experiencing just an explosion in growth right now. Like, you might not see it on the social media stuff through YouTube and Facebook, because we designed our whole setup to drive traffic to the website. And I talked to Broderick about why we did that. But basically, that's where our articles are. That's where you can make donations, and we have merch, and I wanted to drive people there. But we've just experienced an explosion in growth. We've done almost the entire volume of last year in a month and 3 days, or in 10 days. So thank you so much. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe. We put out videos twice a week, Tuesdays and Fridays, 7 p.m. Eastern, and we live stream every other Wednesday. So it just gives us more time to have more stuff to sift through, talk about, kind of it's less pressure on us. It's so hard every other day to come up with a live show and enough material, on top of having 3 kids in the background, on top of writing an article every day, which is the aim and goal. And then I also do the social media stuff where I'm trying to promote all the different platforms we're on. I'm getting tired just thinking about it. So, but what is your thoughts on that project? Like, why do you think they dropped off influenza testing altogether? And don't you think that should be the first thing that happens in a point of care assessment?
Well, it's hard to say. Like, I mean, you can speculate that, you know, people have been speculating for a while that COVID is the flu, but I mean, there's also, they've said higher respiratory issues with COVID, so it's hard to really know or say that it is the flu. But it's weird and it's suspicious that they would just drop testing altogether. I mean, maybe they're swamped and they can't test for influenza, but
yeah, there was a public health unit that put something out. I can't remember. Was it Southwestern?
Yeah, Southwestern Ontario, I think it was. They said based on hand washing and masking protocols that the flu was disappeared. And it's like, if that's the case for influenza, why isn't it for COVID?
I think they said mild flu year to begin with, reduced travel. 1 million people still traveling internationally through Canada's airports every month. But just saying. But anyways, reduced international travel, a weaker strain of the flu, and then, like you said, increased measures. But then, like, we've been circling around this for so long. I said, well, if you look at the flu symptoms and you look at COVID symptoms, a lot of them overlap. They're both influenza-like illnesses. They both transmit similar ways. So I said, like, if it worked to reduce if it worked to reduce COVID, or it works to reduce COVID, why doesn't it work? Or it worked for influenza, why doesn't it work for COVID? I don't understand. But anyways, I digress. Why is Tim apologizing? Oh, because he swore. Tim likes to be a good boy. It holds your comments though. So like we see it. He said that's BS. He's being edgy. Anyways, so all right, let's go into some news. I think now's the time to shift gears. So this was reported by 10% of the Associated Press. Wow, scatterbrain. 10% of the world's people may have been infected with virus. This was in October 5th, 2020. And I'm just going to read the first paragraph because my article's better. No, I'm a little biased. I just want to give you the introduction of what was said. The head of emergencies at the World Health Organization said Monday the agency's best estimates indicate roughly 1 in 10 people worldwide may have been infected by the coronavirus, more than 20 times the number of confirmed cases, and warned a difficult period may be ahead. Of course, there's always a difficult period ahead, according to you guys. Dr. Michael Ryan, speaking to the WHO's 34-member executive board focusing on COVID-19, said the figures vary from rural to urban areas and between different groups, but it ultimately means the vast majority of the world remains at risk. That was his take on it. You know what my take was on it? If you had 20 times more cases than you do confirmed, that means the death count, which we do know, because they definitely pay attention to deaths. The death count, which we do know, is 20 times inflated. So I did my article today. I'll pull up. I didn't think I was going to introduce it, but I did my article today based on that number and give you different viewpoint on the same piece of information, which I think is missing in media these days. It really feels like it's missing. Just you need different viewpoints on the same information sometimes. But anyways, here's my article on it. You can watch the video of him saying it himself in the article. So that way, if you think I'm full of hot air, you can go verify it for yourself. But he said our current best estimates tell us that about 10% of the global population may have been infected by this virus. So that was in October. So I did the article today. The data was obtained using seroprevalence data, which is antibody studies from blood, is my understanding. And then they averaged it out and extrapolated that data and found that roughly 20 times more infections had occurred than had been confirmed across the globe. And then this, like I call it the one and done news cycle. They touch on it. It's look, it's really important. Oh, very nice. I like the stack. Sorry, I just noticed. But they touch on it and then they move on. When they don't want to hammer that narrative, they report and they move on to the next thing and they go back to the things that they want to emphasize. least that's my opinion of what happens. And so I said, if we assume that every single case has been caught since that statement, and they've only been adding like confirmed cases, well, the number of infected stayed exactly the same. If we presume that, as of writing, there's 107 million confirmed cases according to COVID Yale innovation maps. Okay, so it's linked there. You can check it out. So as of February 9th, 2021, in Canada, we've had 810,797 confirmed cases of COVID and 20,909 deaths with COVID. With COVID, I made that distinction. This means that our current case fatality rate is 2.58%. Now, this is a figure that demands attention. It certainly does. However, the vast majority of these deaths we must put in perspective, even if that was the genuine number. The vast majority, over 70% of these numbers, come from long-term care and retirement homes and those above the age of 70. We've written other articles on it. You can go into our COVID-related articles section and find all sorts of articles we've written on it. I need to top it up with all sorts of new articles I've written on it. But that I basically said, so if best estimates would indicate that the total number of cases globally is 10%, then that would be 780 million people. If we do that in Canada, if we took the population, that would mean our current fatality rate is 0.37%. But I went one step further and I said, well, what about based on our population, not just the world data? Well, that would mean 3.8 million Canadians would have been affected if 10% of our population and 20,909 would have died. This would mean our infection fatality rate is closer to 0.55%. So that is with over 70% of those deaths, again, coming from long-term care and retirement homes. Now, it's worth noting at this point, it's not to make light of a situation, but swine flu ended up with an overall estimated case fatality rate of 0.5%, but we didn't lock down entire nations and districts because of it. That was the case fatality rate. Now, I am referring to the infection fatality rate, but they have the infection fatality rate for swine flu. They estimated it could be lower, but the case fatality rate is at 0.5. So they're almost the same, but they weren't doing any measures. The case fatality rate is 0.5%. Nothing happened. And we talked about back in the day, the SARS concerts. That was a thing during all of this going on. They were doing the SARS concerts. It wasn't until recently that this became a big issue. But here's our data from here. Tests performed per million. 589,000 tests performed per million Canadians. That's how much our government has been testing. And with something that is inherently unreliable, cycled far too high, and experts are starting to point out has many other issues. So the U.S., they make just look like an absolute mess. You notice that? So, all right. So that's my take on it. We could have a drastically lower death rate, and then you factor in and you figure it out. Like the breakdown within that 0.55 is even less. So it's worth keeping in mind. It's just crazy to me. Since all this happened, I left the military. I keep thinking about that. I would have been probably subjected to vaccination of an experimental emergency authorized vaccine. I'd be stuck. I'm hearing all sorts of it's still kind of messy. Some online courses and stuff now because of the lockdown again, is my understanding. And I said when I left, you remember, Roderick, I said, governments don't willingly give back power. Doesn't it seem almost, I'm not trying to pat my own back. It almost seems prophetic at this point, like I stumbled into the grand conspiracy and I just didn't see it getting this extreme, that within a year we'll be battling to just have basic rights to travel. Yeah, this is our cat Brinley. But within a year, I didn't think it would be that extreme. Even when I made the decision to start Diverge Media with you, I didn't foresee that. And I just want to see it from your viewpoint. Like, I've thought about this recently. And it's like, what is your perspective, Ben? As you're a young man, right? Mm-hmm. You got a different viewpoint than I do. But what's your viewpoint, Ben, of like the progression of this? Like, what did you think initially when they first said, like, this is happening, lockdown, and then the ongoing measures till now? Because this is the same question I asked Carlos Rollman, the owner of Bread and Barley. You can check out our small business interview about what was going on there. I said, what was your perspective of the measures beginning to like the middle of it to like now? Like, what's that for you, Broderick?
I mean, like most, I was, you're probably a little concerned, scared, or whatever. It was new virus. Came out in March. There's talks about it just after New Year's. I didn't think that was the last New Year's that I would have. So just like so much fun with roommates and friends, and and it just turned into this big fiasco, and it's been ongoing and ongoing. I remember saying to my boss, one of my managers at work, he's saying, "Oh, yeah, you think it'll be done in a month or two or whatever?" Or he wasn't agreeing with me. I was saying, "Oh, it'll probably be done by like April, June, July, probably." No, here we are now, and you've been very right about a lot of these things, and it's scary, very much so. But midway through, you start getting. I guess midway through would have been more like July, August.
That was like when they're like, "Hey, you want a taste of like that good old freedom a little bit?" And then they're like, "Oh, hey, let me pull that rug out from under you." Psych.
Well, it was like I left a job where you didn't have Alexa, stop.
Alexa's like looking stuff up based on his. That's what you get for having a spy malware in your house.
We get to the point in like that freedom taste, and then I left a job where you didn't have to wear a mask outside.
Yeah,
and they weren't enforcing that. Whatever. I don't know if they did after I left, because I left right where they were. I literally started back at Walmart doing the renovations. The day the mask mandates hit Waterloo Region, so that was kind of like a kick in the arse. Yeah. And I wish looking back that I hadn't, because they gave us that option at the beginning not to wear a mask. And I wish I had, but I don't know where that would have.
Seeing that's
what would have happened. I probably would have been fired, or they would have been like, "Here, wear Pfizer," and that's that. Because there are some employees at some stores that do that, but now it's like they're so heavy-handed. Like they've been telling us to wear masks when we're not eating or drinking on break.
You were saying they even have plexiglass partitioning off individual sections for employees to eat. That's the
Now we have like
the measures now within your place of work.
Now we have tables with plexiglass going either way, so you get 4 people on either table. But COVID can't get you over the plexiglass.
This is a crazy virus, isn't it?
And then like we have the lounge, like it's all been renovated, and they have the bar stools and the like a little table, I guess, against the wall. And now they have little plexiglasses going up between every seat, but it's not, that. Yeah.
Where are you at now?
At all, right?
Where are you at now with it? And I bring this up because I think a lot of people are getting burnt out. Like a lot of people are burning out to even being vocal. And I'll give my opinion on it after I get everybody else's. But I just want to get your thoughts on it. Do you think there's burnout occurring? And what are your thoughts right now?
I really do think burnout is occurring. I mean, I see it myself very often. Like yesterday, I didn't even work as hard yesterday as I did today at work, but I felt so exhausted yesterday after finishing work compared to today. And it's, I don't know, like I've been experiencing it on and off. Like it's just, they call it, I don't know, what is it called? COVID fatigue or whatever, lockdown fatigue. And
bullshit fatigue.
It hits.
Again, it's not like I'm saying just open the door, and just like protect the most vulnerable. We should always be doing that, and we should ensure healthcare is in an ample position to deal with. But it's like, man, are you kidding me? Anyway, sorry.
But these lockdowns, they definitely do have an impact on people who are just trying to live their regular life. Like I'm basically living my life as it were before COVID, besides having a social life. That's the only difference. And freedoms and such. But
it's like George Orwell's 1984, where you literally can only work.
Mm-hmm.
Like actually, like
And
you can order.
I wrote an article on this a while ago, and I've talked about it. It's that time of my life where I'm supposed to be socializing, meeting people, dating, marrying, and I can't do that. I mean, I can and I can't, and there's like people who will only do virtual dates right now, and it's
And
just
we've
a
talked about some of the
mess.
online dating stuff.
But on top of that, it's like I saw a Candace Owens clip today from PragerU, and it's like we're over. This is completely unrelated, but like my generation, somewhat your generation, kind of in the mix, has over sexualized women to the point where it's not love, it's lust or whatever, right? So that's kind of that thing.
Yeah, it is off topic, but it seems like our society's pushed like, a feminist ideology of like you can be anything you want, and they almost promoted the sexuality as a good thing. This is just my take on it.
That's exactly Candace Owens' take too. So
yeah, and they just in the process, they've really if you buy into pop culture and all the cultural stuff and you listen, you're what goes in. If you put good things in, good things will come out. if you put those bad things and stereotypes, you're limiting yourself. I'm sorry. You may see it as empowering, and all the power to you for that. I'm libertarian in my approach. Be who you want to be, but on a personal level, I don't think it's good for you, and I don't think it's beneficial for society. And it's kind of crazy because I wanted to bring that back into the dating thing, because what it reminds me of is when you were saying to me that there's a lot of girls right now, like your age, that you refer to as, they say they're going through dry spells and are literally breaking lockdown protocols and just to go out and have one night stands to break the streak, the dry spell, so to speak. You want to bring that up? I'm putting you directly on the spot.
No, like I did say that to you. That is now off the record, on the record. But it's weird. It's just strange to think about. I know what to say, but I don't know what to say. It's just people are the H word, and this is what COVID's doing. This is what COVID's doing to people, and
we try the
glory holes only, right?
Hey, they mask up. What is all the recommendations? There was the mutual masturbation, mask while kissing. There is wear a condom through the mask. I was like, what? There is, it's gone so outrageous, but on the dating thing, that stood out to me when you told me that. Like, there's young people. This is what our audience needs to know.
Tim, this is a PG-13 audience.
There's people out there that are breaking lockdown protocols to go out and break their dry spells because they're HORNY. Okay? We said it. It's on the record. And Broderick knows this because he himself is trying to get out there in the good old dating app game and witnesses it personally with roommates and others. So there, I put him under the bus, and we proceeded to drive over them.
But back to, I don't know if I answered your question now.
Yeah.
In regards to COVID, I could give less of a crap about anything like COVID related. I don't care. Like I like to be respectful to other people, like while I'm at work, and give them the distance they want, but it's hard, it's hard sometimes in the hallways, whatever. But people are so scared still trying to.
I actually think that's kind of my concern, is it causing a lot more harm than it is good? Like, yeah, you say you want to be respectful of people, but at the same time, it's like if I'm constantly avoiding people, I've seen it. I gave this story months ago. Mm-hmm. I was in the grocery store. I don't wear a mask. The person, young man, he's like less than 18, 19 years old, turns the corner, looks up, because I'm going the right way actually this time with the arrows going in my direction. He tried to be a rebel, come up the wrong way. Should have known better. But he turned the corner and he literally just bug eyes, deer in a headlight. and got like frightened, scared. Neck came up, and he turned the corner, and McLovin sped walked away like I did not exist. It just.
Oh, that's the movie now.
Anyway, so that's where you're at on it. You're done with it. You're tired out.
I really don't care. Like my coworker, I'll sometimes drop off. He'll ask me for a ride somewhere after work. He doesn't drive, so sure. Dropped him off at Fresh. Like he always wears his mask in the car with me generally, and I just take mine off. I don't care. Like it's my car, my rules. Like you can take it off if you want. I don't really care. You
can either walk home in this cold, or you can get a ride. That's for you to decide.
But at least your face is warm. I just don't care anymore. Like I'm just so exhausted from all this crap. I don't care. Like here we are. I don't know. It's just that's the 3 words to sum it up. I don't care.
Fair. All right, moving on. Kate. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. I'm looking at time here. I don't mean to come off as mean as I do. All right, Kate, same question to you. Beginning, middle, end. Beginning, obviously, to give context, we were having our third daughter, Addison, at the time, at the beginning of all of this, and we decided to have her at home. So it affected us too, and I want to give my wife to give her perspective of how she views this. So I'm going to mute myself. Sorry about the audio. That's not great. It's not a perfect setup. We're working on it. Thank you for your donations. We will continue to improve our equipment. We're waiting for the expenses of the web site renewal and all the stuff to come up, and then we'll go forward with the upgrades on equipment. But without further ado, our producer and my wife. Yeah, okay, but.
I have to laugh at Tim's comments. They're killing me tonight. Make sure you protect the little guy, Broderick. Oh, man. Yeah, no, at the beginning of all this, like Greg said, I was pregnant with our third, and we didn't know what it was or anything like that. And yeah, everybody was scared at first, and we got over it pretty quickly. And I think it was maybe a month and a half of dealing with all this crap that it was like, all right, this is dumb.
Well, I don't think I said it was dumb.
Yeah, I don't think I said it was dumb. I think there was a day I snapped.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember, but I just came home. I don't know what I was doing. I was outside doing something. I just came in and I'm like, I'm done living in fear. I just looked at my wife. I'm like, I'm done. Like maybe it is bad, but it's like, am I supposed to live my life so scared that I don't do anything? No, because like we were so scared. To give you perspective, it's not that I don't understand that viewpoint, and I try harder now to understand it because of our perspective. We wouldn't even go get fast food or eat out at the time because I was concerned about the transfer of germs on the container.
Yeah.
That's
I didn't even come visit for like over a month or so when she was pregnant. So I wanted to make sure she was okay, right?
And that's the context. And I came in and I snapped and I said, enough, let's figure it out. And then it was actually at that time that I started talking to you, I think, about what are you doing with Diverge Media? And I started seriously looking into what the narrative was, what was going on. I started digging into the medical stuff. Then you started Diverge, and I started one of I think the first article I wrote was
let the children
play. They're not at risk and not super spreaders. So that's the perspective where we came from. That's the ride. Okay, there we go. Sorry, cut you off. That was the perspective. It came in one day, I snapped, and that was the beginning of it. Now continue.
Well, and it was like the girls too. Like they were upset. They didn't understand why they couldn't go to the playground, and trying to explain that to them, it was hard. And it was like, yeah, there's germs. We got to be careful. And it just got exhausting after a while. And yeah, we hit that breaking point where we were just exhausted. We didn't care anymore. And that was pretty much it. And I remember us talking about it too, like with swine flu. We were laughing about it because I said my one cousin who was all paranoid about swine flu, you couldn't go in her house without sanitizing, and she got sick. Her and her kids all got sick with swine flu. We were all fine, but she was the germaphobe. She was the one sanitizing all the time. And we're like, it kind of applies here too. You take away all of your protection barriers, you're killing bacteria and viruses that you need on your body to develop an immune system. It's basic biology. And we all seem to have just forgotten our basic biology. Geez, Storybots. Our kids love the show Storybots. And there was actually an episode on how viruses get into your body and make you sick and how your body defends it. And it seems so simple. It's like the saying from The Office, KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. It's just so simple. And we've just hit that point where it's, hey, we're saving money. We're saving money because we're not going to the store as often because I don't want to deal with the crap at the grocery store. But if you're sanitizing all the time, like you're taking away all of your defenses. And even I was saying this morning, because our car has been having issues with the battery because stay-at-home order. What do? You can't do anything. You can't go, well, you can. But there's really nothing to do. So you don't go anywhere. We literally maybe go up the street twice a day. Sometimes we don't drive our car. And it's taken a toll on our battery because of the cold weather. So Saturday we had to get boosted. Thank you, Broderick.
Yeah.
And then we took a good drive out of town, but we haven't driven the car really since Saturday. And this morning I went to go to the grocery store. Car won't start. And the guy from CAA was saying, yeah, we've been having this issue a lot. You need to be driving your car like every other day, at least 20 minutes. And I said, yeah, well, they make that kind of difficult with the stay-at-home order because is your trip essential? Well, it's essential to keep my car running now, isn't it? So.
What are you on now?
I don't care anymore.
Come back.
I'm not looking for a ticket, but if I get a ticket, I'll see you in court because I don't care. My kids' mental health, my mental health, my husband's mental health, because of my mental health, is crucial. So, yeah, I just wish it was easier on some family, and we've really come to realize how close we are with certain family through all of this. Even on my side of the family, like there's family that I haven't seen really at all since all of this started, and I don't miss them that much. It sounds bad to say, but you realize that, like, and then there's other family where it's like, man, I really wish they would wake up because I do miss them and I want to see them, and I just want to shake the stupid out of them. Putting it nicely.
Come back in here. Oh, yeah. No, it's been hard. That's another thing that gets missed in the discussion is not seeing family for long periods of time and people struggling. Like my daughter, her mental health has taken a hit. She's 6 years old and she doesn't understand why the world basically stopped one day. And I used this example in a story I gave. She wanted to do the high beam thing at Bigaments, where you walk across and you're in a rope bridge kind of thing. And she got scared of heights, and ultimately we were on the thing, and she ended up having to turn around, and we didn't finish, and she was mad at herself. And she's been asking off and on almost every month, when can we go do that again? When can we go golf again, Dad? When can I go to the playground again? When, like, all this stuff. And I see her, and she's starting to ask more questions. She's getting old enough to understand it. It's getting harder and harder.
And that stupid Super Bowl come on.
Oh, yeah, and then the Super Bowl commercial came on. Actually, so my daughter was in the room. Thanks, Doug, you prick. Really, thanks, you prick. My daughter was in the room, and you scared the shit out of my 6-year-old, so thanks. I had to explain to her that it's okay. That's just the government trying to scare you. And she went, oh, okay. Like, what do you say? It's not a discussion around the facts. It's really
commercial?
It's infamous at this point. The old man dying, isn't it?
Well, it was like a bunch of people, and they were having a party together, and it was like this basically this isn't worth it because this can happen.
Yeah, it basically just, don't do this because it's this, or you don't do this because of this. We need to prevent.
Down in tears, worried that she's going to his family.
Yeah, like they're just the utter fear they're putting in the children, and it's so unnecessary. And listen, I may not be the most eloquent of speakers, but I think I'm pretty on the ball when it comes to common sense and logical thinking. It's been one of my strong suits in my life. It's just, for me, I said from the beginning, when they said all this stuff about kids, I said, does my kid's mental health not matter? Does it not factor into the equation? Oh, leave them at home. You remember when they said this? Leave your children at home when you go grocery shopping. The only freaking normalcy my child had at the time was going out to the grocery store with me. And now it's getting to the point where everyone's so scared, I'm afraid to take her out. Because the last time I went out with one of my daughters, I had a 20-year-old young meathead, and I say meathead barely, more like hipster, 120-pound bearded guy, cussed me out in front of my wife and my 8-9-month-old daughter. And this went on for 5-10 minutes because I didn't wear a mask. And now I'm selfish. And now I'm killing grandma. And now I hate everyone. And I'm a conspiracy theorist. And F you to my wife. Right in front. And I said, excuse me, you don't talk to my wife. And this went on for like 5-10. This is what we're doing to people. We touch the stories in the mainstream media. You'll see them do it. And I want to get everyone's opinion here on this. The one and done cycle. Do you see it, Broderick? Do you see it, Kate? I see important things get discussed all the time in the mainstream media. I hate when people say they don't. They do all the time, but this is what they do. That's not what they focus on. I call it the one and done cycle. Let's get your opinion on it. But I call it the one and done cycle. They'll touch on something extremely important and then move on to whatever narrative they want to focus on. And it doesn't seem to be on the things that it should be. Like when you have a report that says 20 times, our best estimates say that 20 times more infections have occurred than confirmed cases, well, that means that we're dealing with a completely different virus. And that should have changed the tune of public outlook and approach and journal, but it didn't. They did report on it, but it's not a part of the daily discussion. So I want everyone's opinion. I call it the one and done cycle. Do you think mainstream media does enough when it comes to certain topics, or do you feel they just do enough to say they've covered it and move on back into the routine of whatever they want to cover?
Well, I'll start off with a story. I remember when this started, there was a whole Roxham Road thing, but there wasn't a whole lot of reporting on it. And so I shared, I think it was Rebel's video, Kian's video, going down to Roxham, and I said on Facebook, why isn't the mainstream media reporting on this more? And a little classmate of mine basically, I think he said something like, you're dumb, like they are, blah, 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 on Facebook. And we got in a little argument through Messenger, and they ended up telling me to get off my high horse, get off your effing high horse, Broderick, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, So I unfriended him, whatever. But yeah, it's common. And I don't know, like I see it. I feel like you don't know, like sometimes when you see it though. You may not see it, and that's why, because they don't write about it enough. So there's some things you may not even see in the news. That's exactly, I think, your point you're driving here is because they don't write about it enough, you don't see it.
Well, it's exposure, and it's also when do they release them. Like we know our most popular times to get an article read is between 7 and 9 o'clock. So if I want an article read, that's prime time. That's when I want it released, is in that time frame, preferably a little bit earlier even. But yeah, I see it as the one and done cycle. Okay, we'll get your opinion on it. Do you think they do enough when they cover it? Do you think they even cover the things that need to be covered all the time? Or what's your viewpoint on it?
I remember saying back in the summer, like when Brian Lilly from the Toronto Sun was starting to ask some questions, and he was asking the right questions to Doug Ford during the press conferences, but he would ask the question, Doug would give his answer, just say as much as he needs to say, and Brian Lilly would move on from it. And there was a few times where it's like, yes, he's asking those questions, but he doesn't press it. And there's none of the journalists do. A lot of them usually kiss Doug's ass, but like they'll touch on it.
Hi, nice
but
to
they
speak
won't
with you
touch
this
it
morning,
again.
It's an interesting thing that seems to happen. Is just you can't say that they don't. And that's why, if you'll notice with Diverge Media, when I write a paper, Broderick does his stuff maybe a bit differently. I'll let him interject, but I like to grab from the mainstream media, and because what I notice what happens. So say this is the length of the paper right here, right? This will be the piece right here that I actually think's relevant, and all of this is their opinion about why. Like, they'll fit the truth in there somewhere, and then they'll talk about it like it's maybe not the most important thing of that, or that they'll negate the answer away, kind of.
They talk about it enough so that
yeah, but they don't really drive it home. So I like to quote mainstream media, and I'll pull out those little fractions, those little paragraphs, those sentences where they give some good information that they don't really necessarily hammer on around the narrative of the article. And I do that for a reason. I do it on purpose because I understand people's bias. And regardless, I want your opinion on this as well. Where do we stand? Do you think people still respect mainstream media the same as they did before? And if not, why not? Do you think they still command respect? Because I know that they do, in my opinion. I'll lay it out quick. Is I think they definitely do, which is why I still reference mainstream media as much as possible when writing articles, because I will pull out those tidbits and little pieces that they don't talk about, or they get rid of their narrative, and then I'll pull that and I put it back in there, because it's kind of a passive aggressive way of saying, hey, like, I quoted you can't even be mad about it. I'm quoting mainstream media. So it just takes an argument out of the shell. I like to do that. We'll get your viewpoint. Go ahead.
Sorry, I just got some text messages. I think a good portion, I wouldn't say more than half, are like not happy or with the mainstream media, but I definitely am less satisfied with the mainstream media than I was before I went into journalism school, and that's just from growing up and learning and figuring out that the media is bought out in more ways. Like, I went to school right before the media buyout, I think, or just while it was happening. And so you kind of get that, I don't know, you just get that, I've just gotten that feeling and that opinion on the mainstream. I despise them, most of them.
It's not to say that they don't do some good work from time to time, or that there's not, like, CBC investigative pieces seem to be okay from time to time. There's certain things that get done that are good. But again, if, people respect the mainstream media, I don't know why. I don't know if it's name recognition, brand recognition. Maybe it's what they grew up on and they've trusted. There's different, I want to drive this point home for people. There's different types of lying. You can lie by outright lying, right, and telling a bold-faced lie. You can lie by focusing on other things. So, like, somebody asked you about something like, hey, were you out here Saturday? Like, let me tell you about what I did Saturday. And you start going off, like, were you here from this time? And you start talking about everything else you did Saturday. That's another way to lie. Politicians like to do that. Shift gears, talk about a story. And there's lies by omission, the things you don't talk about. And so I think part of the issue with media is they lie by the things that they don't talk about. They lie by omission, but it's also the narrative in around it. It's where they'll talk about 100 things that are maybe not irrelevant or maybe not the most important thing, and then they focus on all that and kind of fluff it up, and you lose the important information if it doesn't match the narrative. At least that's how I perceive it. But I want two more things here, and we'll close out tonight. Lying by omission, the mainstream media is good at that. All right, moving on. So we got two little articles here we're going to talk about, and then we're going to move on and close out for tonight. So thank you for everybody for tuning in. But we got two more for you. CBC Sports: Ontario permits indoor dining for NHL teams. All province under stay-at-home order. Leafs suck, Doug. Sorry. Opinions. Oh, we lost one.
Oh, sorry.
Uh-huh.
So opinions. Doug Ford: indoor dining is allowed for NHL teams, but not for the rest of the province. Unless you're out of in green zone, then you're allowed. But personally, it's like, really, they have the money. They could definitely figure out if you're going to make so important, or it's going to be so important to you that all the right measures need to be done and we need to protect people. It's like, I don't understand then why they can go into a restaurant and put people at risk when they have the money that they can hire personal chefs and things like this. I would assume, like, they're multi-million-dollar athletes and teams and organizations. I'm pretty sure they could figure out the food situation. You know a little bit more about that. We'll flash to you here in a second, but Roger, go ahead. Your thoughts?
I'm sorry, what was the question again? I was thinking too much. I got the text. I'll talk to you about it after the
okay.
show. But yeah.
Doug Ford, NHL teams are allowed to eat indoors. Yeah.
If they're allowed to, then we're allowed to. It shouldn't be one rule for me and one rule for thee.
Yeah,
I get that the players come from from the U.S. and stuff too, and then they need to eat. But there's, like Kate was saying, I'll let her elaborate on it more. But the NHL should be able to help them out with meals and such, anyways. So,
unrelated comment section. Sorry. Yeah, you're right. Sorry. Sorry. You got to stop taking me out of game mode here, all right? This live stream is going to tank if we keep getting comments like that. All right. Kate, to you, NHL teams can dine indoors. What are your thoughts?
Well, I remember Doug was actually asked this question in a press conference, and his reasoning, like Broderick said, was there's some players that don't live here and they need to eat too, but there's no players coming into Canada. Our teams aren't going to the States teams aren't coming here. So it's not like there's players coming into Canada, they have nowhere to stay. It's the players for our Canadian teams that are from the US. So they're staying here, but they're not staying at home. They're staying in hotels. So it's not like they have nowhere to go. They're staying in hotels. So
Can they order food?
They can order food. They can get room service, I'm sure. So it's like, how is that any different than us being at home ordering food? You're in a hotel.
And
order your food.
Going back to that. So
we should all just be able to go to restaurants. It doesn't make sense.
So we just talked about different ways you can lie, right? And somebody said deflection. Yeah, that's actually I've read a book. It's a favorite of mine. This is why I'm interested in this topic, called How to Spy the Lie. A bunch of spies wrote it on how to detect deceptive behavior from people they were interviewing, okay? So one of them is to deflect, where you don't answer a question directly. Oh, why did you do this? And then you go off in a big tangent about what's great about why you're doing it. And that's a perfect example. Well, it's because that makes no sense. Like, you can order to your house. They're rich. They can afford it. They have. Why can't the NHL themselves organize something for the teams for food? Like, are you kidding me? We can't figure it out. How's a personal chef for every NHL team? I'm sure they can afford the $100,000 or $150,000 a year salary it would require. Like, give me a break. Anyways, moving on. Article 2, got one more, and then I got some special, cool. I don't announce clips. Okay, sorry, you want to interject here?
Tim says pack a bloody lunch, and it's like the same thing with the politicians are costing us like $800 something a day or something like
per
that.
meal, like in like $30 orange juice or something like that. They hammered Duffy on it way back when. Of course, Trudeau's done much worse things to this country and our finances, but I mean, conservatives get scrutinized to a greater degree for sure. Back. Okay, so we ready for this next one? We'll get takes again, and then I got 2 clips unannounced. Kind of fun for me, so we'll see what everybody thinks. But double mask offers significantly better protection, CDC study finds. Well, how interesting. The CDC all of a sudden is coming out after saying they don't, saying they're helping. You know why this is nonsense? Okay, right off the bat. If 2 masks works better than 1, why wouldn't you just double the thickness of 1 mask?
Well, they already have. They went from like what, a 2-layer mask to a 3.
No. But I'm saying for the single mask, why wouldn't you just increase the thickness of it? Nobody's got an answer. Come on. They're like, literally, well, it works. It's incredible. It's so much better. I can wear 5. It's so much better than 4. It's 4 so much. You know what I mean? It's like, so 2's better than 1. Why don't we just increase the thickness to that of like 40 masks and have a super thick pat? Like, and the reason is because it makes it harder to breathe.
I'm waiting for Tim to say something like, "Make sure you double up."
Okay. So, back to double mask. Your thoughts on double masking? Is it necessary? Is it ridiculous? What are your thoughts on the CDC reversing their thoughts?
It's stupid. It's ridiculous. I remember months ago, my old one coworker was headed back to, I think it was Syria or something, and he had to fly to another country to get tested before he could enter his own country. But yeah, he was wearing double masks at work, or maybe double or triple. I don't know what he was doing, but he was so trying not to make sure he wouldn't test positive that he was doubling up his masks and test. And,
did he test positive?
I don't know. Never heard from the guy since.
Yeah, I just picture testing positive and just cursing there. Yeah. All right, Kate, to you, what are your thoughts? Is it ridiculous? Is it a good idea? Or are you just indifferent? People do whatever they want at this point.
Well, I think we've already established that we think masks are dumb. But yeah, doubling up on it makes no difference. Like, I had an appointment and my mask wasn't good enough. I wore it's funny because you see those advertisements for the SA masks. I don't know exactly what they're called. They're like these bandana face shield things. And it's they're so breathable. They're so much better than masks. You can breathe in them. Well, they're trying to say that you can breathe in masks. They don't affect your ability to breathe. So that's kind of funny. But I wore that to an appointment and they said, no, that's not good enough. It needs to be double layered.
They told me
so
the
they
same thing
made me wear a reusable mask that they had available. They didn't even give me a medical mask. They gave me a reusable mask, which reeked of detergent, which bugged my allergies, funny enough. So I felt like I had to sneeze. And the fibers in it were so irritating. They kept going up my nose. And what am I doing? I'm touching my mask because I have fibers going up my nose and it's making me itchy. So to wear an extra mask, come on.
It's funny because
is that all for double masking? Let's just pull a Jordan Peterson interview. So what I hear you saying is, all right. Sorry, Broderick, go ahead.
It's funny because the SA face shield company, like SA, is they're selling actual, like, I guess it's reusable masks now. Like the actual ones with the loops, and it looks like a medical one, but it's made out of a fabric.
Ones now.
Have you seen the Space Dome?
Okay, look it up. Look up Space Dome COVID mask thing. I don't know. It literally is like a thing. It sits on your shoulders like a backpack, and it's like a screen, and you can look. And all I could think is like, what happens if someone sneezes? And it's just all you see front center. See if you can find that for us, Project. But on the double masking thing, I got one more thing for everyone. Did you find it? He's cutting out.
Does it look like a astronaut?
Yeah, it looks like an astronaut suit kind of thing.
Well, that's definitely homemade, but
no. There's one that's like a legitimate business now at this point. All right, so we got. Oh, don't look that up while we.
I have no idea.
All right, so everybody, Tom Brady recently won. Like, we're not a sports organization, but I'll comment on sports from time to time. Sports is a part of the culture, and sports is a representation of life in a lot of ways. But Tom Brady recently won his 7th Super Bowl, most winningest QB of all time in the NFL. But I was saying to my wife, he got a little out of hand today. Okay, so he's kind of went viral today. I don't know if you've seen the videos, but Tom Brady had a few too many drinksies and had to be ushered out of the boat party parade for the Super Bowl. And so I got a few videos lined up of Tom Brady enjoying himself at 43 years of age, celebrating his 7th Super Bowl victory. And then we'll get everyone's thoughts.
Are you gonna share that other video first, though?
Which one?
The mask video.
The what?
The mask video.
What mask video?
The one where you can see the vapors swimming.
Oh yeah, if you got that one?
It's in the folder.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's,
hold on.
it's in the chat.
I've already introduced Tom Brady, so I
Okay,
gotta.
we'll watch
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
That's great. So yeah. Anyways, here's Tom Brady boat parade celebration. After a few probably wobbly pops. Yes, that is the Super Bowl trophy.
No,
So he just threw the Gronkowski, and he just threw the Super Bowl trophy across boat from boat, celebrating. And yeah, here's Tom Brady getting walked off. And somebody, I'd love to know who cut Tom Brady
Oh,
off.
that's Brady. I didn't know who that was. Either.
he's living life.
So I don't know who this guy is on the left, but he literally gets walked off. Let's go to the walk of shame at the beginning here. Look at that face.
Tom Brady, Super Bowl MVP 7 times.
All the media is like, I can't get a question after this guy.
Can't somebody just win their 7th Super Bowl at 43 years of age and get hammered? It's like, I feel bad for the guy in a sense, because it's like he just won the spectacle of sports for the 7th time, most winningest QB of all time. Dude eats super clean all year round for football, to the point where there's like, you can look up Tom Brady's diet, and there's things out there about how his kids don't eat any sugar, and his first wife was really strict on that stuff. And so I said to Caitlin today, I bet you he doesn't even have wheat in his diet for like the entire year. I said that could have been Tom Brady after 2 beers for all we know. Out in the sun, perfect diet all year round, doesn't drink. And then you get him out in the sun, he has a few wobbly pops, and boom, Tom Brady throwing the Super Bowl trophy boat to boat.
Oh.
Anyways, I thought it was funny. I don't know what everybody else thinks. I'm not looking for controversy, all right? If you don't like Tom Brady, that's fine. My personal opinions aren't relevant in this discussion. Just thought it was funny. Guys, that 43 years old, 7 Super Bowls, and I just picture this old man hanging out with a bunch of 25 to 27, like young guys who can party, and he just tried to hang for a little too long. And what do we get? We get Tom Brady with a guy with an arm around his shoulder, and Tom's like, hey.
That's like my mom trying to keep up with like.
Yeah, that's the equivalent of like Caitlin's mom trying to keep up with your roommates. and a night of drinking. Like, it's not going to happen, and it's a bad idea. That's the equivalent. Tom Brady going out and being like, I'm going to party with the Buccaneers.
That's like any wedding ever, really.
I just made a lot of people feel old. I'm sorry.
There's a lot of people are like feeling the spike coming out of here.
And that's like most of our audience. So, I mean, you don't look a year over 29.
We're darlings in the 40 to 60 crowd, okay? I know my audience, and honestly, I don't mind that at all. I'm not making fun of it at all. I actually think it's fantastic. It makes me feel like I'm not a stupid idiot or some stupid young kid that doesn't know what he's talking about. The fact that it is an older audience that seems to seek us out, but it also means I got to do something different. And that's what we had this joke about having to start TikTok, right? You remember I said we need to start doing like our own videos on TikTok, like the 9-second news report, and just like basically be like Ollie from Family Guy just yelling out different stories. I don't know. We got to do something.
There's other platforms. Instagram's got their own little thing called Reels.
I learned Instagram, and I probably still don't know how to use it.
We just got threatened with a cane.
What?
Tease me about my age, and I'll beat you with a cane, Tim.
I haven't seen it come up yet, so I think it's being censored.
I just showed it. Oh, so if I might have to reconsider Saskatchewan on the list of movable provinces. If Tim's gonna beat me with a cane for making comments about age, that might be something off. Off limits from here on out. All right, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to Diverge Media. We hope this has been not only informative, but also a little bit fun. News shouldn't always be depressing. Hopefully you smiled with us a little bit, or maybe you're just tired of my stupid face. So
Tim kept it interesting. So.
Tim's been coming around for a long time. Linda, good to see you back. We have some Search for Truth with Joanne. Good to see you. I've seen you a few times now. Good to see Canuck Law in here. So thanks for everybody coming out. Live streams every other Wednesday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, and videos Tuesdays and Fridays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Thank you for checking out Diverge Media, and go to divergemedia.ca for more articles. I'm Greg Staley signing off.
I'm Broderick Visser.
I'm Caitlin. See you guys.
Have a good night.